Hello everyone. So we were discussing evidences for organic evolution. So under that topic, second point is embryological evidences. That means the evidences which we can derive from embryological studies by studying the developing embryos of the organisms. So the first point in embryological evidences are similar early development. All the organism, all animals starting from hydra to men begin life as a single cell, which is fertilized cell, which is termed as zygote. And zygote, it will undergo cleavage and it will form 8 cell stage after cleaving, and then there will be further cleavage, and this 8 cell stage morula, it is converted into blastula, which is a hollow ball like structure. And here is the cross section through the blastula. You can see internally it encloses a cavity which is termed as blastocele. And further, this blastocele, this blastula, it will start undergoing gastrulation. That means formation of 3 different germ layers: ectoderm, mesoderm and endoderm. They will start taking their position for the future organ formation. So that step is termed as gastrulation. So finally, this is gastrula, which is a three-layered structure. So all the organisms starting from hydra to men, they show similar early development, like I have shown you here, starting from zygote up to gastrula. So that was the first point, which shows that all of these organisms, they are closely related and they must have originated from a common ancestor, and which proves theory of organic evolution to be very well documented, and it supports that. Then the next point is resemblance among vertebrate embryos. The early embryos of all the vertebrates, they resemble in shape and structure. So here you can see embryos of fish, salamander, tortoise, chick, rabbit, and man has been shown. So, in the early stages, which is shown in this upper line, embryos of every organism of fish, salamander, tortoise, duck, rabbit, and man, they look similar with a rounded head, similar kind of head structure with eye and ear rudiments, and similarly segmentally arranged somites. You can see the gill slits and somites in the body. So these are very much similar structure with the tail at the posterior end of the body. So all the embryos in their initial stage of the development, they look alike, they look similar. You cannot differentiate which organism is going to form rabbit and which embryo is going to form tortoise and which embryo is going to form fish. Okay, so all the vertebrate embryos, they grow, whenever they grow, they first develop their phylum characters, then they will develop their class features, and finally they develop their species peculiarities, species features. So like in early embryo in a bird's egg, suppose hen, it first develop vertebrate characters. That means notochord, gill slits, dorsal hollow nerve cord, somites, and tail. Later it will acquire the bird features, which is the class, such as beak and wings, and much later in the development it will form the characteristics of a chick instead of a pigeon or a duck. So these events, these will be determined later on in the development of organism. So, this is not merely a coincidence. This proves the degree and duration of the resemblance of the embryo. It indicates they have a closely associated relationship. They belong to a common ancestor. They must have evolved from a common ancestor. So, the degree and duration of resemblance of the embryos indicates the evolutionary relationship of the adult vertebrate. That means if longer there is similarity in embryos of two different organisms, more closely these are associated. More the degree of similarity, more will be the association. Okay, so this is resemblance among vertebrate embryos. As you can see that much later in their in their developmental history, they gain their individual characters, species specific characters. So in later stages of the development, you can identify which embryo is going to form which organism. Then next is modification of similar embryonic structures for different functions. Embryos of all vertebrates, they have pharyngeal pouches and pharyngeal arches. These are similar in structure and develop in a similar manner, but as the development progress, These embryonic structures, they assume different forms and role in different vertebrates. Like in fish, if we talk about fish, then in fish, some of the pharyngeal pouches changes into gill slits for water breathing, and first pharyngeal arch, it form jaws. So here we can see, here is the fish. So this green structure, that are jaws and jaw supporting structure, these are developed from the first pharyngeal arch in case of fishes. And then rest of the pharyngeal arch, first will form the jaws and second arch will form the jaw support, and rest of the pharyngeal arches, they will support the gills, they will make the gill supports, okay, in case of fishes. Further, in case of amphibians, first pharyngeal arch, it will form the jaw support, which will support jaws. Second will form the stapes, as sound producing and sound detecting apparatus are a must in case of terrestrial organism. So these original pharyngeal pouches and arches, they will be modified to form portions of sound producing and sound detecting apparatus. So the first pharyngeal arch, it will form the jaw braces, as I have shown here, this black structure. And the second pharyngeal arch, that will develop into stapes. It will help in conducting sound waves. The fifth pharyngeal arch, it will give rise to larynx. It will support larynx, which is a cartilage, which is a sound producing organ, which will help in production of the sound. Okay, so the first pharyngeal pouch, if you talk about the pouch, then it will be modified into middle ear and eustachian tube. If you talk about human being, these pharyngeal arches, they will be modified differently. Like first pharyngeal arch, it will help in formation of malleus and incus, which are the bones in the internal ear, middle ear. And then second pharyngeal arch, that will help in formation of stapes. So here this bluish structure, that is formed by second pharyngeal arch, which is showing stapes, which is again a middle ear bone. And incus and malleus and this jaw support, these are derived from first pharyngeal arch, and second pharyngeal arch will form stapes. And finally the fifth arch, that will form larynx cartilage again, and this hyoid, which will support the jaw and larynx, which will larynx is this hyoid is formed by third pharyngeal arch, and the fifth pharyngeal arch, it will form larynx cartilage, which is again a sound producing organ in case of human being. So this example shows that evolutionary process is very much opportunistic. That means it can modify the existing structures for a different role in a new environment. So it clearly supports organic evolution. The next point in embryological evidences is similarity in invertebrate larvae. Okay, so trochophore larva of invertebrate of Annelida and mollusca. This is Annelida, trochophore larva, and this is trochophore of mollusca. So these two larvae, these are very much similar in their structure. These are free swimming larvae, and they have small transparent oval body with a tuft of apical cilia. You can see here, this is apical cilia, and here in this annelid trochophore as well, there is apical cilia and a apical plate and a ring of long cilia. You can see this is a ring of longer cilia which is present around the body, and uh, telotroch at the posterior end, ring of cilia at the posterior end of the body. So here at the posterior end where anus is present, again there is ring of cilia which is termed as telotroch. So both of these trochophore larvae, these are very much similar in their structure, yet they belong to different phylums. One is of Annelida and other is for Mollusca. So it suggests this resemblance, it suggests that annelids and mollusks, they must have descended from a common ancestor. They must have a common ancestor. That's why they have so much similarity in their structures. Then next is resemblance between Bipinnaria of echinoderms and Tornaria of hemichordates. Both of these larvae, these are very much minute, oval and transparent body with identical external ciliated bands. You can see the ciliated band, these are ciliated bands on the body which are very much identical, and they have same number of coelomic cavities, and all the coelomic cavities, they open through a dorsal pore. Okay, so these are some of the similarities. They both of these larvae, they have complete digestive tract with the mouth and anus. And so this resemblance among echinoderm and hemichordate larva, it suggests that both of these phylums, they must have evolved from a common ancestor. So this again proves theory of organic evolution. So that is again an evidence in support of organic evolution. Then next is in embryonic evidence is recapitulation theory. It was given by von Baer in 1828. Later on, it was called as biogenetic law by Ernst Haeckel in 1866. What does this law states? It states ontogeny repeats phylogeny. Now, what is ontogeny? Ontogeny is life history of any organism, and phylogeny is ontogeny is life history of any organism, or you can say developmental history of any organism, and phylogeny is evolutionary history of any organism. So any organism in its developmental history, it will show stages of its evolutionary history. So that is biogenetic law. That means it clearly states that an animal in its individual development from egg to adult, it will repeat the stages of its ancestors, the characters which were possessed by its ancestors. So that will be shown, that means its evolutionary history will be shown in its developmental history. So there are certain examples for that, for recapitulation theory, or how ontogeny repeats phylogeny. Like one I have already discussed, that all animal life started as a single cell zygote, which will be converted then into blastula and then into gastrula. So that is one common pattern which all the organism, all living animals follow. Then second, a very good example of recapitulation is vertebrate embryos. Every embryo, they show, they first develop their phylum characters, then their class characters, and then their species specific characters. So a fish embryo, first of all, it will develop gill slits, gill and aortic arches and two chambered heart, and these structures will persist in adult because they will help in water breathing. So frog embryo, when frog will develop, it will also develop similar structure, which will be persisting in its larval form, tadpole larva, because it is an aquatic form. And but whenever this tadpole larva, it will metamorphose into adult, air breathing adult, gill slits will close, and gills will be lost, and lungs will appear, and aortic arches, they will decrease to three pairs, and heart become three chambered. So these are some of the changes. So early embryos, if you talk about early embryos of reptile, birds and mammals, they also develop fish-like patterns of gill slit, aortic arches and two-chambered heart, and then three-chambered heart before they acquire their original four-chambered heart. So these stages, they clearly state that organisms develop through descent with modification. That means it support organic evolution. Okay, so here is a chicken embryo and human embryo has been shown here, that slits are homologous, and these are very much similar to that of the gill slits of fishes, and both of these possess tail. And here is a diagram which shows the degree of similarity according to Haeckel and von Baer. According to Haeckel, developmental stages recapitulate adult evolutionary stages. So you can see in fish there are total fish-like characters. In case of frog, the embryo, it will show some characters of fish, and finally it will metamorphose into frog. And in case of bird, first it will show some character of fish, then some characters of frog, and then birds. So it clearly states that these develop through different stages from simpler organism and heading towards the complex organism. And according to von Baer, there is no recapitulation. Embryo's development is increasingly diverse. From the very first step, these are three different organisms without any repetition of their ancestral characters in their evolutionary, in their developmental history. So that was the point of von Baer, and that is the point of Ernst Haeckel, which is termed as biogenetic law. That means ontogeny repeats phylogeny, and which clearly proves that all the organisms, they have evolved through organic evolution. Then is progressive metamorphosis. Now, what is metamorphosis? Metamorphosis is the change of a lower stage to a higher or advanced stage in the organism's life history. That means changing of egg to larva, larva to pupa, and pupa to adult, or egg to larva or larva to adult. So that is termed as metamorphosis. That means change in form. So during metamorphosis, what kind of metamorphosis will be termed as progressive? When a initial stage will be less advanced or will be simpler, and the advancing stage will be having more complex characters, and that will be more complex, so that is termed as progressive metamorphosis. That means there will be some progression in the characters acquired by the organism. So progressive metamorphosis is shown by frog. As you can see, the initially eggs will be converted to larva, which is termed as tadpole larva, which will be having vertebrate like characters, gill slits, and notochord and dorsal hollow nerve cord and tail, and finally the tail will reduce, and finally it will develop into tailless adult organism, which will be independent of water for its daily activity, and it possesses a pair of lungs. So this stage is much more advanced than the tadpole larva, because tadpole is purely aquatic, and this organism, this frog, it can inhabit water as well as land, so that is much more advanced form. So such kind of metamorphosis is termed as progressive metamorphosis. Also, there is example of branchiostoma and petromyzon. Now branchiostoma, that is a different organism, and branchiostoma is not even closely related to petromyzon, which is a sanguivore, and the larva of petromyzon, which is termed as Ammocetus larva, that resembles closely in structure and function and in habitat to the branchiostoma, as you can see in this picture, and you must have studied that deeply in fourth semester. So you can see that these two, branchiostoma and Ammocetus larva, these were so much similar in their structure as well as mode of life that they too were placed in the same subphylum. But later on, it was found that Ammocetus larva changed into adult, which has been already placed into a different subphylum. So it clearly indicates that these two organisms, these two animals, Branchiostoma and Petromyzon, they must have evolved from a common ancestor. That's why they have similar early structure. The larva resemble to that of the Branchiostoma, and they must have diverged in their evolutionary development. So that is progressive metamorphosis. The next is retrogressive metamorphosis. What is this? Retrogressive metamorphosis is when there will be change from a more advanced larva to a degenerate adult. That is termed as a retrogressive metamorphosis, and it can be illustrated by some examples of like Succulina, like Herdmania. These two organisms, they show retrogressive metamorphosis. Succulina, this orange, this yellowish structure which is present on the ventral side of the crab body is termed as Succulina. It is a parasite of crab. This yellow structure, you can see it. So these are attached to the ventral side of the crab, just between their cephalothorax and abdomen, and it consists of the Succulina. It consists of merely a soft, smooth, ovoid sac-like body with a short stalk, and it doesn't have limbs, it doesn't have sense organs, doesn't have mouth or alimentary canal. But larva of Succulina, you can see this is Nauplius larva of Succulina, that is a free living larva, and that has three pairs of locomotory appendages and have a pair of mandibles, have anus, have caudal styletes. So this Nauplius larva closely resembles, it also has a median eye, it closely resembles to the larva of crustaceans. So it lead us to classify Succulina as crustacean, that Succulina is crustacean, which was very much difficult after seeing the characters of Succulina. It was supposed to be some lower group, lower phylum organism, but the larva of Succulina, it clearly depicts that it belongs to crustacean. So this the character resemblance of Nauplius to that of the crustacean larva is not merely by chance. That again proves theory of organic evolution. The next example is of Herdmania. Herdmania, as you have studied in fourth semester, that is a sedentary creature which is found attached to a rocky substratum in the ocean, and it cannot move. But its larva, tadpole larva, you can see here, that is a free swimming larva which has chordate like features. It has dorsal hollow nerve cord, it has a tail, it has gill slits, and it has a notochord. But all these characters are lacking in the adult of Herdmania. So it clearly demonstrates that these show this is an example of retrogressive metamorphosis when larva is much advanced in the adult. So both of these examples, Sequelina as well as Herdmania, they illustrate that von Baer's law, which is ontogeny repeats phylogeny, they both illustrate that that law is true, that during development the general characters which distinguish phylum and classes appear before the special characters of the species or genus. So because of arising of these special characters of phylum and class in the larval stages, we are able to classify these organisms to their true phylum. Okay, so next is temporary and non-functional embryonic structures. Embryos of certain organisms, they develop some non-functional structures which reduce or disappear before hatching or before birth. So some of these are, there are two three examples in that. First is teeth in bird embryo. As we know, all birds, they lack teeth. They do not have teeth in their mouth, they have only beaks, but inside beak there is no teeth. So, but embryo of birds, they develop teeth. As you can see here, this whiter portion in between, that is teeth. So this is bird embryo that possess teeth. So these embryos, as you know, embryo do not take any food through mouth. Through mouth, they survive on yolk, which is present inside the egg, which is absorbed by blood vessels. So these teeth are of no use. These are non-functional. But adult birds, they feed on hard, solid food like grains and meat and nuts. So they require teeth for mastication, but they do not have teeth in their adult stages. So that is a very interesting phenomenon. So a structure is present when it is not needed during embryo, and it will disappear when the organism need it. That means during adult stage. So this phenomenon, it is explained by concept of organic evolution. That means the birds have evolved by modification of toothed reptiles. That means birds have evolved from reptiles which have teeth, and they are repeating this character in their embryonic forms. So they lost teeth during the course of modification during evolution. When they were modifying to become birds, they have lost those teeth, and they repeat this character presence of teeth for a short time in ancestral for a short time during their development. Then another example is hair in whale features. Whales, adult whales, they do not possess any hairy coat, and but the fetus of whale, it develop hairy coat which is almost fully shed before birth. So fetus do not need any insulating coat because it already remains warm in mother's uterus, and a coat of hair can be useful in cold water after birth, but that is not there in adult organism. So again, that is a similar kind of phenomenon, that when a structure is present when organism do not need it, but when it need it, it is absent. So this is again explained by biogenetic law, that whales have evolved from hairy mammals, and they have lost hair in the course of evolution. And the fetus of whale, it recapitulates, it repeats the ancestral trait for a shorter time. That's why the hair are present in the whale for some time. Then the last in this is development of vertebrate organs. Certain organs like heart and brain, studying the development of brain in a particular highly developed organism, that can prove from where this organism has evolved. Like if you talk about heart, then heart during its development in birds and mammals, it passes from two chambered to three chambered, then three and a half to finally four chambered heart. And it clearly indicates that both birds and mammals, they must have originated from fishes, which has two chambered heart, then through amphibians and reptiles, which have three and a half chambered heart, and finally birds and mammals, they have four chambered heart. So during development of any mammal, first, the heart will be two chambered, then it will be three chambered, then three and a half chambered, which clearly indicates that they have evolved from fishes through amphibians and reptiles. Finally, similar is the case of development of brain. In all vertebrate, brain arises an enlargement of the anterior portion of the neural tube of the embryo. The neural tube of the embryo, the anterior portion of the neural tube, it will start growing, enlarging, and it will develop two grooves. And these two grooves, they will divide the brain into three portions: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. And these three parts develop further more or less in similar manner till the adult condition is reached. So this again proves that all the organisms, they these aves and mammals, they must have evolved from fishes through amphibians and reptiles. Then next evidence category is geological evidences. Now geological evidences, which is related to uh, geological surveys and studies. As we know that age of earth is 4.5 billion years. Earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago, and the first life appeared on earth, and that life has appeared in water about 3.5 billion years ago. So the course of evolution has not been smooth, and there have been several plants and animals that evolve only to perish later on. Okay, so duration of Earth's history has been divided into six geological time spans, which are termed as era. There are six geological time spans, which are termed as era, and these era, three more recent eras, has been divided into smaller spans, periods, and the period, each period has been divided into much smaller spans, epoch. Okay, so these will determine how and when life has originated on Earth. So this is geological time scale table. As we can see, Azoic era, where it has been written as heading, which is an era of no life. There was no life at that time. Then Archeozoic era of primitive life, which is written here as Archean. Then Proterozoic era of early life. Okay. In Proterozoic, these all are period is known as Precambrian, and this Proterozoic era, there is origin of simple marine invertebrates, which are without shell. So only scanty fossils are present of these organisms. Further, the next era is Paleozoic. This Paleozoic is era of ancient life, and Paleozoic era is divided into these periods: Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, and Permian. And during Cambrian, all invertebrate phyla have been established, and these are the million years ago when this time period was present. Cambrian was 500 million years ago, Silurian was 410 million years ago, and so on. So during Cambrian, all invertebrate phyla have been originated, and during Ordovician, origin of vertebrates, especially jawless fishes, and then Silurian is origin of jawed fishes and winged insect. Then Devonian, this is origin of amphibians and forest, and fishes were abundant during Devonian period. Then is Carboniferous period. In this Carboniferous period, origin of reptiles and winged insect, and shark and amphibians, they were at peak. And then Permian, during this period of Paleozoic era, there has been extinction of many marine invertebrates. Remember, I have told you some organism evolved just to perish later on. So many marine invertebrates, they perished in this Permian period. The next era is Mesozoic era, which is divided into further three periods: Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. So, in Triassic period, that is a period of rise of dinosaur. In Triassic, dinosaurs were originated, and there were some amphibians which got extinct during Triassic. Then is Jurassic. During Jurassic, there was rise of first tooth birds and first mammals during Jurassic period. Finally, in Cretaceous, there is extinction of giant reptiles. That means dinosaurs. They got extinct during this Cretaceous period, and rise of first modern birds. So modern birds, they arose in Cretaceous period. Then is Cenozoic era, and tertiary and quaternary. There are two periods of this era. In tertiary period, there is emergence of there has been several epochs of this tertiary period, like Paleocene, Eocene, Oligocene, Miocene, Pliocene. and in this there have been diversification of placental mammals and rise of first monkeys and apes and emergence of men from man-like apes. And in quaternary periods, the modern man and mammals and birds and fishes and insects, they evolved, and that has one period, quaternary period. So this was all about the geological time scale. So by studying geological time scale, we can conclude that how these organisms, they have arise from the simpler forms, from simpler organisms. So again, it proves organic evolution. The next is paleontological evidences. Now, paleontology is the study of past life based on fossil record. And what are fossil? Fossils are petrified remains or impressions of ancient organisms which are preserved by either by natural means in sedimentary rocks or in amber or in asphalt or volcanic ash or peat or bogs or sand or mud in any source. If any fossil remain has been preserved, so that is termed as any remain of organism has been preserved, that is known as fossil, and study of fossil is termed as paleontology. So there are certain evidences from paleontology. The first is number and nature of fossils in early rocks. Rocks of early era, as we have studied in geological time scale, like if you talk about proterozoic era, it contains scanty fossils. And then in the rocks of later eras, that means mesozoic era and cenozoic era, that possess more fossils in comparison to that of the proterozoic. That means at the time of proterozoic era there has been very less and simpler organisms. Then second is distribution of fossils in successive strata in the rocks. It fully agrees with the concept of organic evolution because of these points. Rocks of the earliest era do not show any fossils, but later on, simple fossils have been found in rocks of Proterozoic era. There has been abundant fossil in Paleozoic era, and these fossils were of marine invertebrates, simple organisms. Later on, the fossils of fishes and amphibian in later periods of Paleozoic era. In Mesozoic era, fossils of reptiles, primitive birds, and mammals. As you can see, that complexity is increasing with the time scale. In Mesozoic era, reptiles, primitive birds, and mammal fossils have been found. In Cenozoic era, typical mammals and man fossils have been found. So this proves theory of organic evolution to be very correct, and all the life has evolved from simpler forms through various changes and adaptive modification, and finally reaching to the complex form. Then third is disparity between past and the present forms of life. There is a lot of difference between extinct animals and their living counterparts. Like if you talk about the previous reptiles, extinct reptiles, these are very large and fearsome creatures, and which are termed as dinosaurs. So you can see, so that is Brontosaurus, and which is an herbivore dinosaur, and that is Tyrannosaurus, which is a carnivore dinosaur. So these two are very large organism. This Tyrannosaurus is 5.4 meters tall with 13-meter long, and this Brontosaurus is 25 meters long with 4.5-meter height, and with metric tons of weight, approximately up to 50 metric ton in weight. So such kind of large reptiles were present at that time, but the modern reptiles are very much smaller and lighter. Like you can say lizards, common lizard, wall lizard, spiny tailed lizard, and snakes. So these are very much smaller in comparison to those previous reptiles. So there is a great disparity between these two structures. Also, if you talk about the early man and modern man, that is very much different. So the early man, he lived in caves like animals, and it doesn't have any social life, and obtained food by hunting wild animals and by gathering fruits and seeds. So by several changes, both in form and structure, he developed into modern man. You can see the various stages in the development of human being, and you must have studied human evolution. So this again proves that there is disparity between past and present form of life. That means that with gradual changes in simpler form, the complex form of present day has arisen. The next is missing link. What are missing link? Missing links are the fossil organisms which show characters of two different group of living animals. That means two different group of living animals are present even present in present time, but an organism which is extinct now, we have got the fossil of that organism that shows character of two present different groups. Okay, so that is termed as missing link. So two such missing link has been shown here. One is Simuria and other is Archaeopteryx. Simuria is a missing link. It's a fossil reptile from Carboniferous period, approximately 300 million years ago, and it links amphibians with reptiles. Okay, it is a connecting link. It is a missing link between amphibians and reptiles. So it possesses some character of amphibia, and just like limbs, short limbs which are extended sideways from the body, and it has an awkward type of locomotion as in amphibians, and it has some characters which are similar to that of reptiles, which included modification of first two vertebrae into atlas and axis, and two sacral vertebrae, and it also laid cladoic eggs on land. So it was probably the first one to lay cladoic eggs on land. So Simoria is clearly a transitional stage between amphibians and reptiles. So it clearly proves that theory of organic evolution is very much true, and reptiles have originated from amphibians because it contains characters of these two groups. The next is Archaeopteryx. That is a missing link between fossil birds, and it is a fossil bird which is a missing link between reptiles and aves, and it was in Jurassic period around 180 million years ago, and it possessed feathers just like birds, and it has a rounded cranium. It has three fingers and four toes, and one first finger is directed backward and two to four are directed forward. It has a U-shaped bone furcula. So these are all bird-like character, but it also possesses reptile-like characters. Like it has teeth in the jaws, it has claws on free fingers, it has a long tail. Here you can see bearing tail feathers, and it has a keelless sternum. So it has characters of these two groups, and which clearly depicts that it is a midway stage between reptiles and aves, and aves have originated from reptiles. The next is ancestries of individual animals. So, through several difficulties in the formation and study of fossils, complete evolutionary histories of some organisms like horse and camels have been studied in detail, and which clearly proves that these have originated the present form of these two organisms, horse and camel. They have originated through a series of changes, modificated changes in the past forms, in the ancestral forms. So you must have studied in detail the evolution of horse, that how horse has evolved from Eohippus to Mesohippus, then Merychippus, Pliohippus, and finally Equus, by reducing the number of functional toes, by lengthening the by elongation of the third toe, functional toe, and second and fourth toe has been reduced to splint bones in case of both the limbs, and how it has increased its height from 28 centimeter to 150 centimeter in the present horse. So these are some of the changes, and we have observed the fossils of intermediate stages, which clearly prove that this is a true phenomenon, organic evolution, or that means complex forms arise from simpler one by modification. Then similar is the case of evolution of camel. Camel has been evolved in North America, and its evolution started in Upper Eocene and approximately 65 million years ago, and in Paleocene. Then this organism was very much smaller in size, that was of a rabbit size, and finally it grew slightly larger and attained the size of a sheep and then llama, and then finally it achieved the present height which it has now. And and also skull and teeth has also shown some of the changes. Skull, it grew larger in size along with the size of body. Limb bones, initially it has four functional toes and finally two functional toes, and then finally, in the present camel, there are only two toes which are functional. And number of teeth in case of this camel during evolutionary course, it has decreased. In initial stages, it has 44 teeth. Then these 44 teeth again are retained up to the Eocene, up to Oligocene, and finally in Miocene, the number of tooth has decreased up to 34, and these are retained till now. So these are some of the intermediate stages in the evolution of camel, which shows that organic evolution has taken place, that these complex forms have arisen from the simpler one by modification. So this was all about the paleontological evidences of organic evolution.